We are Area 51 Coffee Company. Coffee for regular humans and coffee with twice the caffeine of a typical cup with a buzz that's out of this world. Coffee connoisseurs from across the galaxy seek out our smooth brew with a hint of sweetness in a perfect roast. Area51coffeeco.com. You will also be assimilated with our Area 51 merchandise. We are invading Earth one cup at a time. We are Area 51 Coffee Company. Area51coffeeco.com.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic drew their plans against us.
Prior to your abduction, did you believe in UFOs or any sort of alien life form?
All things unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
Hello, all you unexplained ones. Thank you for joining us. This is CJ Derringer, and you are listening to the All Things Unexplained podcast. I'm here with my co-host. I've got Dr. Tim Mounts as well as Smitty Neves, and we are so lucky to be joined by a very special guest this evening. His name is Patrick from the Vetted podcast. We have been following him for a long time now. He has a very popular show covering all things about the UFO phenomenon. Thank you so much for joining us, Patrick.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Oh, please, guys. Please.
That was wild.
A warm welcome in these parts. But we have lots that we want to cover tonight. And we recently had Diana Pasulka on our show. We did a deep dive with her into all of her books that she has released so far, including American Cosmic and Encounters. And we know that Patrick has been following along with her story. But before we dive into that, Patrick, give our listeners just a brief overview of what it is that you do on your show.
Yes, first of all, pleasure to be here. All Things Unexplained. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Great intro, by the way. Holy cow. Really love that. Yeah, my show's pretty simple. Every day, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, we talk UFOs, right? I keep it pretty simple. I try to condense what's out there and just kind of bring some of the more pertinent stories, every day to, create a UFO town square. That's what I like to say. At 12 p.m. every day, everyone meets in the comments and talks about what's going on. Keep it pretty simple. Do some interviews here and there. Nothing too crazy.
Yes, it's great. And it is simple for the listener and the viewer, but I know just based on watching your show that you yourself do a ton of work to pull that all together because you're bringing in these really pertinent clips to what you're talking about, as well as interviews from other people. And you're really putting a lot of thought into what you're saying when you share it. So, and to put it out every single day, that's impressive. You do great work.
Thank you, CJ. I appreciate that.
So go check out Patrick's show, Vetted. And yeah, let's dive right into Diana Pasulka. So she got really big recently after going on the Joe Rogan podcast. She was big before that too, but in terms of really going onto a global scale, I think that really thrust her into the limelight. And one of the things that everybody was very interested in was this concept that she was taken by a NASA official to a UFO crash site in New Mexico where they were looking for UFO debris, and her fellow scientist, or I guess she's not a scientist, she's a historian, but her scientist friend Gary Nolan was there. He took something back. They've reverse engineered it, tried to figure out what it is. What do you guys, each of you, make of this story that she went to this crash site? We've all been doing a lot of research on it now. What's your gut instinct on that story? And I'll start with you, Patrick.
Oh gosh, I was ready to hear everyone else's. I'm confused by it. Interested, intrigued, fascinated. Right, I could use a lot of different terms. That's what that story evokes in me when I hear it. It's got everything you would want on a great UFO story, right? Secret, UFO crash site from the 40s, but not Roswell, being blindfolded, finding actual materials that you dug up. A Stanford professor is joined at the last minute, right? You're going with this NASA official that's taking you out there, claiming that he's been maintaining this site for decades, that it's been passed down to him. I mean, that's an intriguing story, right? There's a lot going on there. And someone who's kind of secretive, right? It's told in the book American Cosmic. So it's kind of this, even the person taking them out there is not wanting their name to be public. So yeah, it's got everything you would want in a great story. So it's intriguing.
Yes. Tim, what was your initial thought when you heard it? Because you sent me this clip from Joe Rogan. You were like, listen to this and tell me your thoughts. Which is a daily occurrence, by the way. I wake up every day to these sorts of things.
And then
You gotta see this. It's crazy, man.
several hours later, I'm usually like, "Did you watch the clip?" You know, what's been pretty quiet over there, but no, I was so intrigued by her story, and one of the most intriguing aspects to me, and this was revealed later on in her book Encounters, which, by the way, we're still encouraging everybody to go out and purchase their own copy of American Cosmic and Encounters. So we feel like we're past the point of spoilers, right? Okay, so but fair warning, there are spoiler alerts here for American Cosmic and Encounters, but well worth the read, no matter what we say about them. But the intriguing part to me is that they're at this crash site from the 40s in New Mexico, but we're not talking about Roswell. And so I was so intrigued by that. And what turns out we're talking about is the plains of San Augustine. And it took me quite a while to figure out exactly how to spell that. And the correct spelling, according to locals, is Agustin. And so this place is really far out there. And it actually, once I realized that's where she was talking about, it made a lot of her story ring truer. Like when she talked about the fact that this NASA official or Space Force official blindfolded her and Gary Nolan, who we know, Gary Nolan is James from the book American Cosmic. I wondered to myself, and I don't know if y'all thought the same thing, like, really, do they really still blindfold people? You know, that seems like a kind of a weird James Bond type of villain thing to do. You know, does that really still happen? Don't they have cars where they can black out the windows where you can't even see outside? But as I researched into the plains of San Augustine, and somebody whose name I'd like to talk about more later, possibly by the name of Art Campbell, who, shout out to Art Campbell, who he might be passed away, I'm afraid. I can't really verify that. But he spent years out there digging in the desert, in the plains of San Augustine. And turns out it's very near the Very Large Array. So this huge array of satellite dishes. We've seen this in the movie Contact. And by the way, have any of y'all seen the new show on Netflix, Three Body Problem?
No.
Yeah.
I'm actually watching it now.
Yeah. So
Right now, as we're doing this show, you are watching
yeah,
TV.
well,
I see his eyeballs.
and you know, I got a little bored with Tim's answers, so I just cut Netflix on. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, well, so Three Body Problem, right? They're at a huge satellite dish from China back in the day. Anyway, it made a lot of sense to me that if you were going to keep it secret where you were taking these people, that if they were allowed to see the Very Large Array, then automatically, boom, they'd know where they were at. So that made her part of the story ring even truer to me. So I thought it was really intriguing that they were at the plains of San Augustine. I recently just got back from a trip to Roswell, to the actual crash site. So I'm pretty into it, to say the least.
All right. Well, Smitty, you're a history teacher. You are a religious expert. Anybody knocking on your door to take you to a UFO crash site these days?
No, I can't even get anybody to take me to dinner. But I think that like Mount said, there's some credibility lent to the fact that it wasn't Roswell to a certain extent, because you know that's the Mecca, and this person seems to be working outside the usual box of information that's already flooded all ufology up until this point in time, and to see the person or how she describes him, is pretty amazing, really, of all the things that he was able to accomplish. And if it is completely 100% legitimate, it's pretty mind-boggling to me.
Yes, and we will get into who he is in a bit, because I know Patrick has spent some time digging into who this Tyler D is. And okay, so one thing that when she was on our show, we really wanted to talk to her a lot about the soul and angels and demons and what this might all mean. But she makes it very clear that her books are academic books. She does not put any of her own opinion into them. They're truly just stories that other people have shared with her. So she wasn't too comfortable talking about soul and angels and demons, because she also has her own personal opinion on them and didn't want to cross over. But Tim, I know diving into the soul was something that you were really hoping to glimpse from her. Was there something specific you were hoping to learn from Diana when you were touching on that subject?
There really was, because when you start talking about things like the soul, you really start touching on what we've heard a lot of lately, which is these disturbing aspects of the UFO phenomenon. Because when you start crossing the paths, and I do not think they're mutually exclusive, I think that they're bound together of religion and ufology and the phenomenon. And when you start thinking about things like the soul and angels and demons, then you get into some pretty dark territory. If we have a soul, then where did this soul come from? Where is it going after our death? What are these angels and demons? Where did they come from? This also carries the insinuation of races, right? Alien races. Angels and demons, no matter what religion you are otherworldly beings by definition. And obviously, we're talking about different types of otherworldly beings by classifying them as angels and demons. So it does get into the theme or the notion of alien races. And we've heard people talk about, some pretty dark stuff. Like even Bob Lazar mentioned that he heard, maybe it was a psyop, maybe not, that some of them are just using our bodies as containers for souls for some nefarious purpose. So it's some pretty deep stuff, and I really just wanted to know more about it.
Well, Smitty, as
Yeah.
our resident religious expert, did you see any crossover in what she was talking about and just things that you have studied in the Bible in terms of souls, angels, demons, UFOs?
I really don't see any crossover personally, but that's the thing about it. It's kind of like Tim said, that you have this different thoughts. You have one, UFOs might be some sort of type of demon entity that was left after the flood is one thing. Two, that they might actually be a separate creation, and if they exist. And then, of course, three, they might be some kind of angelic. But my personal opinion, if they were to exist, and I'm still not, 100% convinced of UFO existence or aliens, if they do, it would be some sort of separate creation, because, I don't know. It's a hard area to, and I'm very religious, so it's a hard area to kind of tack down. But I do have a friend who is convinced that all of those things are some sort of demonic entity. And that's what people are seeing. And it's basically causing chaos and taking away from people's faith. That's what he believes, And so for her, I'm kind of like Diana. It's kind of a hard subject for me to breach just because of my faith.
Sure, it's hard to keep your personal opinion.
Is it because can I just ask a question?
Yes,
real quick?
jump
Is that
in,
okay?
Patrick.
Smitty, is it because man is created in God's image? So maybe like this idea that there would be this other being created in God's image or outside of his image. Is that sort of what's the confliction is, or what do you think?
I think so. And just the fact that if he did tell us all that he's told us, which he has, and obviously the Bible, why didn't he tell us that part? Why is that
Correct.
part absent
Left
from
out.
all of everything else that we know about him. And so for me, that's a very conflicting thing in my life to investigate this thing.
Yeah.
I've kind of
That makes
kept
sense.
this part of my life, believe it or not, and my other part of my life completely almost separate.
You don't tell other people about us, do you?
It depends on who the person is. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Well, also the Bible, right, was as a whole put together so that, like, let's say, for instance, the day of Pentecost, right, where, right, right, like we need a way to understand each other, right, through language, right. So, but then once the Bible, but you know, so we need tongues, we need speaking in tongues, we need certain things that are done during that time that after the Bible is completed, you don't need those things anymore, because now the word of God is in a book. We don't need anything more than this. So your point about, okay, if it's not in this thing that God is saying, this is everything you need to know about me, I get your point, right? Like, it's not in that. So how can I trust this? Essentially,
and you literally just summed up what I try to teach. I mean, about that part, in my opinion, is done as far as the, speaking in tongues and those types of things, because it is, I mean, you got the Bible, you open it up. There's no, you either believe it or you don't believe it. So, I think that's very profound that you said that, because it's basically the same level I'm on when it comes to that.
That's what I do, Smitty. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No. And I appreciate you saying that.
One thing that I was trying to ascertain from Diana when we had her on the show was whether or not she thinks that religion and science are trying to explain the same thing. Does she believe that what they were talking about in the Bible and the phenomena that we're seeing now are the same? And I gathered from her that she did not think so. She did not think that it was the same. I don't know if anybody has any opinions on that.
I think it depends on which branch of science you're talking about. I mean, there are scientists who want to prove the existence of God, and there are those who want to prove that he doesn't exist, and there are those who want to prove that alien life forms exist. So, and they're all going about it different ways. I mean, that's what's kind of phenomenal about that show that Bounce is talking about, is because they're trying to reach out there to something beyond,
And they're all approaching it with their own ideas to start with. So they're looking for the answer that they want to see. And that's challenging. And one thing that I see, Patrick, on your show, it seems like you are really just pulling in people's opinion, people's clips and things, and saying like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what this looks like, without trying to put too much of your opinion on it, which is great. If anybody that is joining us live right now has any questions for us or for Patrick, please do put them in all caps. We would love to be able to pull your questions in at some point, and we will try to get to those a little bit later in the show. So thank you for joining us. All right. One other thing that was discussed a little bit was this idea of ancient alien encounters that have happened long ago. So Patrick, in your show, have you dove into this at all in terms of this idea of ancient aliens that have existed long before we started looking for them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because it's kind of is it its own thing, subcategory. I guess it could considered that. I actually haven't really dug into it too much, aside from a random comment someone might make in some sort of clip I'm showing, but as a whole, no. And it is something I do want to get into and start covering that. And even, talking with Smitty about, the Bible and the history of that, that it's believed, right, potentially that maybe stories from the Bible, they were misconstrued as being this, creator or God, but actually it was these aliens, right? So that's intriguing, right? So that would technically be ancient aliens as well. Ancient civilizations helped by aliens, building pyramids, all of that. It's super exciting. So I haven't dug into it, but I absolutely want to, for sure.
All of the theories, right? Ancient alien theorists say Yes.
Yeah, I'm. How do you become one of those? First of all,
Right. I know.
But-
I'm available in case
Yeah.
the History Channel was looking.
Totally.
Tim, what was your take on this idea of an ancient alien race?
Well, again, I think that, some people look at the phenomenon as something that's really increased in intensity here lately, and maybe it has increased intensity, but I look at it as like, this has been around for thousands of years, folks. This is not the first time we've heard of people being abducted by UFOs, of UFOs being sent out to destroy entire towns, which happened in the Bible. So the Bible and ancient civilizations and clues around the world are chock full of evidence of encounters with other worldly beings. And, I have to say, another interesting thing about Diana Pasulka for me is this. We have the utmost respected academic who tells the world that she's been taken out into the middle of the desert to a UFO crash retrieval site with one of the most respected scientists in the world, Dr. Gary Nolan from Stanford. Why isn't this a bigger deal? This is why I think, part of why I think this, if disclosure happened tomorrow, I don't know if people would really notice that much. I don't know if they'd look away from their screens or get detached from their phones long enough or really even care about it. So I'd be curious to know what Patrick and everybody else thought about why do we have such a respected person telling us these things? People hardly even blink.
What do you think, Smitty?
I think that they just have somewhat thrown up this ideology that, I'll be honest, I'm just going to say it, that people that have any aptitude toward alien life forms are crazy. I mean, and even if they are a Stanford scientist or anything else, but every person that's ever done anything scientifically at that time were generally considered a little bit mad. If you go back and you look at all history, somebody that's created something has been someone that has often been ridiculed, at least for that period of time. And I think really ancient aliens, I find personally the early American history sightings way more interesting for me, because you can look at Jamestown and the one diary, they describe seeing something for a long distance of time. And after that, especially the written words, these people are writing all this stuff down, which words are power, So,
Well, you're right about people who have been involved in the UFO community in the past being made out to be crazies. Somebody has done a really good job of making that the result of people coming out to disclose information. I think there are lots of people that maybe that's even their full-time job, is to make us all look like monsters. However, Diana Pasulka talks a lot in American Cosmic about the power of entertainment and how entertainment, when it is out there, has an actual physical effect on our bodies, which then has an effect on our brains in terms of how we see the world. And the more that we talk about aliens and the more that we talk about UFOs and the more that we see them, the more we all as society begin to believe that it's real and that it's possible. We all have shows about things like UFOs and aliens and Bigfoot, what have you. She talked a lot about it. And now she has even more people talking. Have we seen a trend at all since Diana Pasulka came out with these books and went on the Joe Rogan podcast where more people are talking about it and normalizing the conversation? Do we think that trend is happening? I'll ask you, Patrick, since you put a show out every day.
That's a good question. That timeline's probably too short, but I get your point. Overall, people are definitely talking about this topic more. There's no question. So I think when people like Diana Pasulka get involved and write books, and she's got a show coming out from the Game of Thrones producers, right, based on these stories, as well, coming out. Chris Bledsoe, UFO of God. He's got
Yes.
something coming out based on his book. So I think you've got Three Body Problem. You know, I think it's the #1 show on Netflix. I think it's just becoming, the stigma is there, but kind of like it's not doing well. It's sick. The stigma is sick because
sick.
it's like most people are cool to talk about it. Most people are interested to talk about it. They want to know more. They want to dig in more. How does it relate to my religion? They're able to have those conversations, like Smitty was talking about, how that could conflict with you. More people are willing to have those conversations. In fact, you're seeing religion and spirituality become part of the conversation, whether we like it or not. So yeah, I think, and having her go on such a platform as Joe Rogan, even though the Joe Rogan platform has dropped a few notches, is the impact that it used to have, it still has a major impact, across the globe. So yeah, I mean, it definitely furthers the conversation, gets people talking. But to Tim's point earlier, like, how is her going on that trip to the secret crash like not bigger news, And I would say, just because it sounds crazy, it sounds unfathomable. I think they went. The bigger question is the site what they say it is?
Right.
If that makes sense. I think the trip happened, all this stuff happened. And I think Diana is very careful to say that as well, right? She doesn't know.
She
like, I
doesn't
don't
know.
Says,
and that's why the story's not bigger, I think, because even in telling her truth, she does have to say, I don't know if they were, if I was a pawn in their game. Were they trying to make me believe in something that wasn't real? Were they placing things there? Here's what happened. Here's the truth as I know it. I can't tell you much more than that. So maybe that's why it's not a bigger deal. But there were some big players in this event. So let's dive into those. And we will get into the Tyler G in a moment. You mentioned Chris Bledsoe. Let's start with Gary Nolan. Tim, what do you make of Gary Nolan and his friendship with Diana Pasulka?
Well, to follow up on what Patrick said, and by the way, we're so pleased to have Patrick from the Vetted Podcast with us tonight. Please check him out on YouTube at Vetted Podcast. An amazing show. I love it. Comes out a new episode every day, so check it out. Please subscribe to everything he's got going on over there. But to follow up on what he just said, there's some danger in this success as well. There's some danger in this newfound relatability that everybody has with it. And that danger is, the success that now Diana Pasulka, because her story really was, wild. It was very movie-like. I mean, now it is a new TV show, right? How successful would her book have been if it was only a recounting of, the literature of alien and UFO encounters from the literature as a true, she points out her book is published on Oxford. It's an academic book, right? But it's a little bit of a stretch when you start getting into your own personal account, for which there is no proof of, not exactly, right? And when you're talking about digging up UFO parts in the desert, it begins to be a little bit of a stretch. Is it an academic book? Is it fiction? Is it? And by the way, Patrick, she told us that her new television series is it's going to be fictionalized. It's going to be a fictionalized television show based on American Cosmic and Encounter. So I think there's some danger here with this success. That there could be the push to create even more outlandish stories and tales and situations. I found something on Twitter. This is a great example talking about media and Gary Nolan, though. This is from Twitter today, courtesy of Uplifting Tweets. Throwback to when Dr. Gary Nolan was cast to play the lead in Legends of the Fall, but due to scheduling conflicts, he had to be replaced by some schlep named Brad Pitt. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. The folks involved in these stories, they're literally like superstars now. They're like movie stars from a very popular thing, and Gary Nolan is no exception. Now, I got told by somebody in Roswell that they know for a fact that Gary Nolan and Jacques Vallée are researching and experimenting on UFO parts. Now, whether that's
Diana
true or
Pasulka
not,
told us that too.
and Diana Pasulka mentioned that as well, that Gary Nolan is doing some disturbing research. So, he's a very interesting
Disturbing.
character. Disturbing, yes.
That's
Disturbing.
who said that? Diana used that word?
Diana
Disturbing
used that word.
research? Interesting. What does that
Yes.
mean, right? What does that mean? Disturbing research. Like, that sounds like Island of Dr. Moreau. I don't know. I get scared hearing that.
Oh yeah, well, one thing she did say, and I think she had more on the back of her mind, but we kind of already knew about part of it. She said, "Hey, he's looking for a way to turn for people to be able to say no to alien encounters or the UFO phenomenon. He's looking for basically a magic pill or some way for people to just shut it off, stop it. Like he wasn't able to do that. We've had very high
what?
level.
Who said that? Who said
Yeah,
that?
that was Diana. Yep, they talked about
Really?
that
In y'all's
with Gary.
interview?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last year? Oh man, I need to. I
But I
didn't
believe
know
she
that.
talked. Yeah, I believe she
That's
talked about that in
interesting.
American Cosmic too, though.
Oh,
which
okay.
which is why I get the feeling that she is aware of even more disturbing aspects of his
Oh, for
research.
sure.
Yeah,
Let's be right. Of course. What does
and
she
that's
really not say on podcast or
Right.
yeah,
let's
and
be
that's why I
real.
can't help but
After a
wonder: is
bottle of
this?
Riesling behind
Yeah,
closed
yeah,
doors,
oh, yeah.
right? She's gonna spill the beans. That's a conversation I want to be at.
Well, I mean, she lives right down the road from us.
Yeah.
CJ,
Really?
she works for UNCW, University of North Carolina, Wilmington. CJ used to live in Wilmington. It's just
Wow.
literally right down the road. And you brought up Chris Bledsoe. He's also right down the road.
Mhm.
And he ties
really?
into, yes, in Fayetteville, which the
Chris, if you're
locals
watching,
call
I've tried
Fayetteville.
several times to reach out to you.
Yeah, she has.
Come on,
CJ's reaching
Chris.
out. What are you waiting on? We just want to go have coffee with him. Like we don't even
Yeah, for
have to
sure, right?
necessarily go
Yeah,
out on his property and
totally.
off the record too, because we really want to ask him some questions because he seems to be a integral part of this story as well.
100%.
He does. Let's dive into that.
100%.
Let's dive into the Chris Bledsoe part here. How are they connected, Patrick, in all of your research that you've done? What's the Chris Bledsoe, Tyler D, Diana Pasulka connection?
I mean, from what I can tell, it is Tyler D who has been, outed as Tim Taylor.
Right.
This guy, Timothy E. Taylor.
And can we say he was outed by Chris Bledsoe? It feels a little bit like
100%.
Yeah, okay.
100%. Which he's explained a few different times why, and at this point it's out. Cat's out of the bag. And there he is at the Vatican here too. So he's the connection between them. And I found out more through speaking with Grant Cameron. Like, they would have these like experiencer meetups up in Canada. And Tim Taylor likes to show up to these to meet people, right? It's how he's meeting everybody. And supposedly that's how he potentially found out about the crash site that he took Diana to. But, it's kind of a little confused. It's kind of the end of Inception, right? The top is spinning and you don't know what's going to happen.
No, that movie
And it's
frustrated me.
Yeah, right. You want to know because it's like, either he took him to the same crash site or there's two crash sites in San Agustin, which basically means Saint Augustine, right? So think about the religious connection there, right?
Right.
But yeah, is there two different crash sites there, right? They taken him to the same one. Has Chris Bledsoe gone? I've heard yes, I've heard no. Supposedly it's like a sacred place. They worship there. So I'm talking about the same place Diana went to.
Right.
So I don't know. It's hard to tell, but this guy, Tim Taylor, he is definitely connected somehow in there, to a lot more people than just Chris Bledsoe and Diana Pasulka. Way more.
Do you think he still is?
100%.
And I have to tell Patrick something. Somebody asked me several weeks ago, "Hey, have you ever gotten scared looking into some of these subjects?" And I said, no, I really haven't. I really have felt very disconnected from everything.
But my co-host CJ.
Yeah. Unlike CJ feels frightened quite often. Hitchhiker effect. But I did have a situation here a couple weeks ago there where I really got freaked out one night. And it was because I watched an episode of yours, Patrick, of the Vetted podcast on
Oh
YouTube.
no.
And it had Chris Bledsoe on there, and he started talking a little bit about his connection with Tim Taylor. And suddenly I just started connecting the dots here. And again, this is where we get back into some of the potentially disturbing aspects of this all. So we have a man here who, in reality now, went to space and did an experiment and came back and got a patent for the spinal technology, right? He sold that company to a private biotech firm, retired, made enough to retire off, has since made lots of other patents and in biotech, including on placenta, some sort of placenta biotech even. And it's kind of creepy. It's kind of weird. And you can't have to ask yourself. And then you consider this fact that Diana talks about this notion of the UFO crashes being donations, right? And we've heard it from a lot of people. Hey, quid pro quo, right? If they gave us technology, what did we give them? Like, wouldn't you believe that there could be something else being handed over here? So
Smallpox, I guess. I don't know.
smallpox, COVID, I don't know, but we have to ask ourselves, hey, are we looking at a situation here where some people are benefiting off of alien technology in exchange for, I don't know, secrecy that they're out there, for abductions? For quite a long time, Patrick, we've seen reports of people having implants put into their bodies of being abducted by aliens, having experiments done on them. It didn't start with Whitley Strieber either. And so you really start connecting the dots here, and there's some potentially dark stuff going on.
Please tell me you saw that lightning behind me that time. And then the thunder struck immediately. We're having
right on
a storm
cue
here. Oh my goodness.
I mean, if you're right, if that's happening, there's got to be some kind of quid pro quo, where they're garnering something. I mean, people just don't do things for free hardly in this world, and so for them to do that, there's got to be something they're taking away from that particular interaction.
And I want to circle back to Art Campbell here, because Patrick's brought up Art Campbell on Vetted podcast before, I believe. And Art Campbell, he wrote this book. I've got it sitting over here somewhere. It's a great book. It's not a fun read, but it's highly technical. And it details him spending years in the plains of San Augustine, digging in the desert and finding what he believes to be literally alien organs, among other things, out there in the middle of the desert. He sends them off for analysis, and the book is chock full of analysis. But not only that, but at some point, Patrick, I'm not sure you knew this, but talk about the quid pro quo stuff. Art Campbell received a letter from someone who said that he was present when Ike met with aliens and negotiated a deal with them. And Art Campbell researched this guy's background and determined, he really was a member of the military and really was there serving at that base that he says Ike visited and did this deal. Now, I admit it smacks of psyops, a letter out of nowhere, maybe to distract you from what you're digging up in the plains of San Augustine, but it still seems like a pretty big coincidence to me.
So what are you thinking, Tim, or anybody for that matter, would be the deal? What are we giving to aliens for their technology? Other than smallpox, Smitty.
I mean, the only thing I could see that we might be giving them biological material. Because,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else we would have to offer anybody other than that. Because, I mean, obviously our technology, if they do exist, our technology is way less advanced.
Mm-hmm.
But the biological material could be something. And I don't really know what 100% secrets we would have to offer that they didn't have. But it's possible that might be an exchange, the secret exchange.
Well, I'll tell you where some people are going with it. And we had physicist Kevin Knuth on with us, he told us there's this really weird statistic that the majority of people who have claimed to be abducted by aliens have been presented with a baby at some point. And there are
And the
people,
same blood type.
yeah, of the same blood type. And there's people out there that are talking about there is a potential alien crossbreeding situation going on with humans, right? And we also had another guest that said he was abducted by aliens and they took his semen. They painfully removed his semen from his body. And here we have Tim Taylor, oh, poof, I've just had an idea for some placenta patents. Okay. It's, yeah. And then you start thinking about the souls, if aliens are collecting souls for some reason and storing them in containers somewhere, then maybe that was part of the deal too.
Patrick.
Sorry.
Where do you go from there, huh? And Patrick, you're muted at the moment. Just FYI.
Yeah, I didn't want to. That's a lot to take in. I'll be honest. That's a lot. Yeah, I mean, the thought of, these alien beings or whatever are scooping people up off Earth here, right? And without consent, horrifically extracting, semen from dudes and women, who knows what's happening to that, and then making these babies. I don't know. The story sounds crazy, if I'm being honest. Just right off the bat, it sounds crazy, but I just need to see proof of this stuff, some evidence for me to really even consider it, to be honest with you, because then it's just, where do I go? What do I do with that story?
Right. There's no end.
I don't know what to do, but a person telling that story, I feel deep sympathy for them. I can't understand those feelings, but deep sympathy that someone went through something so traumatic, has to live with it, right? And then even repeat the story. And it doesn't seem like there's any end to it, right? Is that what we're giving back? Is that the quid pro quo? If it is, we need to renegotiate the deal. Here. We need to go on strike and renegotiate, because that is not worth the technology that we have, in my opinion. If that's what we're getting it, or what are we getting? Who makes the deal? Who said the contract? I don't know. Plus, just because if you give a monkey a banana, you're not necessarily wanting anything from it except seeing what he does with it. Observation. Think of social media. What the biggest thing is, they just use your data. They're like, hey, go have a good time. We're going to track what you do. And then we sell that information. So the beings could just be giving you stuff, and then they just want to see what you do with it. They don't necessarily want anything back, if that makes sense. So, because that just seems like an odd deal to make. Well, we'll give you some new technology, but we're going to need your semen. I don't know. I just think there would be a lot of dudes willing to do that for nothing, in my opinion. I feel like there'd be a lot of dudes like, you ain't gotta force me. I will intergalactic
willingly donate.
Yeah, I believe
10 years
that,
off your
100%.
prison sentence, maybe.
Yeah. Tim, actually, you might. I mean, we're joking, but that I could see that happening. So
yeah,
anyway,
that might be
I don't
happening.
know.
We would never know.
We would. I don't know if I want to know. I don't need to know everything. There's some things they can keep to themselves. So I don't know. I'm curious. Yeah.
Yeah. My theory, if this is all real, my theory is that they're just trying to crossbreed with humans so that both species can make it to another planet.
I like that.
That's my thought. You
Yeah.
know, if we're
So
trying to
some
get,
new
we know we're
planet
gonna,
that.
yeah, well, we know we're going to use up all of the resources on Earth. If we want the human species to continue, it can't continue here forever. We have to be able to do interplanetary travel, and they've got the technology, but they also need some sort of body to get them further into time. Crossbreed situation to.
I like this. I don't think I've heard that, if I'm being honest. No,
just
but
throwing
that's
things out
it's
there.
hard to hear new theories, to be honest. I never heard that theory before. I like that.
Oh,
That's
well, there
interesting.
you go.
That is good. And we
Just
haven't even
coming up
brought up the military and aerospace implications, right? So obviously, there's a big contingent of people that believe we have been reverse engineering alien technology for quite a while and integrating it into our aerospace industry, into our military technology. So obviously, if we could get our hands on something like that, we definitely would. Now, again, what would we have to offer for that? Or let's put it another way: if we could fit, and this is where Chris Bledsoe comes back in. Chris Bledsoe insinuated that Tim Taylor wanted his involvement because he could connect with the phenomenon in ways that they just simply couldn't. And so, if they could figure out a way to, connect with the phenomenon in ways that would improve our military technology, then I feel like, yeah, they would.
Absolutely. Well, we want to dive into some listener questions and hot takes here soon. But before we do that, any last thoughts on Tim Taylor and who this guy is? And, is he profiting from downloading information from the phenomena or from doing these scientific studies in space shuttles? How do we get connected?
Tim,
Well,
if you're listening, let's do an interview, Tim. Let's get you
Right?
out there. We just want to hear from you. That's all. We just want to learn if there's something to learn. All right.
Yes.
And
Well,
I don't
he's
really see what his
profiting.
motivation would. Well, yeah, but he's already rich, so I mean, unless he's just wanting to garner fame, he's got enough money. So
Well, he doesn't want the
Well,
fame,
here's the thing.
really.
He's used American tax dollars, so I think it's fair to ask him to sort of explain some of this. That's my opinion on it. Now, the stuff he's done privately or trips or what, no
Yeah.
problem. That's his own
well, I
thing.
mean, I agree. I'm just saying, if he's doing this for
Yeah, no, you're right.
profiteering, I mean, he's already probably worth more money than
done.
I'll ever see in my life.
Yeah,
And
100 for me too.
Likely.
No, you make a
Yeah.
good point. He has no. I mean, you make a good point. He has no reason to.
But there's the ethical dilemma, right? You have this ability, this is according to Diana, to go through these protocols and get in some sort of connection with an alien mind and come up with these experiments that yields biotech that helps humanity. How many people does it help? I don't know. Let's say thousands. Heck, let's say millions. So the ethical dilemma is that worth? And by the way, is all that new technology really just coming from scientists in space, or might some of these abductions be in collaboration with humans to develop this technology? So the ethical dilemma is, hey, to help thousands or millions of people with the new biotech, is that worth an exchange of, I don't know, however many abductees, however many missing that we see in the United States every year? How many thousands of people are missing from Alaska and national parks with literally no explanation? The guy that climbed Mount Shasta, I believe it was, and he never came back down. There's literally no crevices to disappear in. So there's an ethical dilemma here, right?
well, I'd say this in my class: the wheels of history have been greased with the greed of humanity, because you never underestimate greed. And if one person wants something, they don't care who stands in their way. A lot of people don't. Now, I would, but a lot of people don't care who stands in their way. So if it takes lives, that's fine. If it takes abductees, that's fine. And that's what it boils down to. It depends on who the person is, because we've seen it 1,000 times over the course of the earth that people will trump on you for their own reasons.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, they will. All right, let's dive into some listener questions here. We have some from earlier, but if you are listening right now and you have questions for any of us or for our guest, Patrick from the Vetted podcast, please do put them in all caps so we can pull those in as well. All right, Tim, let's get this first question up here.
All right. First up, we've got for Patrick.
Oh, yes. From Jason, what inspired you to start the Vetted podcast?
First of all, what's up, Jason? Thank you for the great question. To actually start the podcast, I would say I interviewed James Fox on my other podcast about a moment of contact, about the Brazil Varginha case, and that well-produced film and great conversation with James really just kind of sent me over the edge. Like, okay, I'm in. I was always kind of into it before, but not like that. So that really set me over the edge to sort of want to dedicate my time, full time to it.
Sure. That was your initial contact.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Next, we've got from Jessica. Seems like it's also for you here, Patrick. What's been the most surprising or unexpected thing you've learned from your podcast?
I think we can all answer that. What was the question again? I'm so sorry.
What's been the most unexpected or surprising thing you've learned from the podcast?
Got it. Jessica, great question. Again, you got a great audience here asking great questions. Surprising or unexpected thing, the most surprising and unexpected thing is that the things you'll learn will be surprising and unexpected, if that makes sense, because you don't know what you're going to, go through as you go through it. So just be willing to take things in stride and go with it. That would be the biggest thing. Learn to let things go and just move on. Yeah. Just don't focus on whatever things just something, you record something with a guest, it goes wrong. Who cares? Let's record again. Like, just let things go. Something maybe not working right in the interview. Okay, let's move on. You're getting some comments somewhere about move on. So just learn to take things in stride. It's good. You're going to have a lot of surprising and unexpected things.
Wonderful answer.
I tell you what's been one of the most surprising things for me with our podcast is that, and I totally did not expect this to happen, but so many of the people that have come on the show with us, by the time they were gone, they felt like friends and family to me. And I totally didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
And just like the folks from Board Camp Crystal Mine in Arkansas, they sent me a message the other day, right? Like, hey, when y'all coming out and staying with us? And I thought, man, that's amazing. And so many of the folks we've had on, and I'm sure Patrick will be the same way. I'm just like, man,
no, I hate my guests. I hate them. I'm kidding. I'm joking.
These are, but
it's that Southern charm, right? Tin. It's that Southern charm. Yeah. Well, I think it's the Southern in all of us here, right? Just kind of hospitality and very friendly. And you can meet someone at the gas station pumping gas. Next thing you know, you're barbecuing on Sunday. So I love that, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm with you guys. Yeah, 100%.
We're all hosts. We like to host people.
Yeah. Totally.
All right. This is definitely for you, Patrick. How do you manage to get new content out every day? I want to know that too.
Frank, another great question. I download it, y'all. I just
he's got his protocols.
Give me the stuff. No, I'm kidding. Right. I don't necessarily record every day. Yeah. I don't necessarily record every day, but I make sure new video goes out every day. It's my full-time job. So it's a little bit easier than if I was doing this after, working 60 hours, like let's say when I ran my food truck, there is no way in hell I'd be doing that with this. Right. So it's my full-time job. So it's not as hard as you think. There's people out there doing way harder jobs than me. Okay. Way harder jobs than what I do. In fact, it's coming from working as a chef in restaurants and working 7 days a week, all day long, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Right.
This is like cake, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
it's like, this is easy. This is so easy. I get to stay home and just record, talking to a mic and a camera. And it's actually not that hard, to be honest with you. And there's so much content out there to cover. You would think there may not be. There actually is. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of people, a lot of events, lots of things happening. These guys would tell you the same thing. It's actually not that hard because I try to make each video one thing I talk about if I can, right? It's about one sort of thing. I don't try to jump around too much. I mean, I add context to what I'm trying to show, but I try to keep it to sort of one sort of message. So
yes,
it's actually not that hard. So probably the job you have is 10 times harder than what I do. So respect to y'all out there watching, listening, that have the real jobs. All the respect to y'all.
And I tell you what, Patrick, keeping your daily content to as concise of a point and topic as you can is incredibly difficult, especially
100%.
with the UFO topic.
Yeah.
It's not known for the as the UFO rabbit hole for nothing.
Yeah.
And that's probably my second biggest surprise is from our very first guest, who we thought was just a simple story, right, about a UFO encounter. As he started digging, it just went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and it never stopped. And that was the first guest, and that was over 3 years ago. So just think how big of a Grand Canyon we've got now. We've got
and
one
Tim
more.
can't stay on topic ever. So let's jump into.
Well, we got one more question for Patrick, if he doesn't mind.
All right, last question here for you, Patrick. This is from Grace. How do you envision the future of the Vetted podcast evolving or growing?
Great question, Grace. Oh my God, your guys' audience has amazing questions, by the way. I'm here for the audience at all times, guys. This is why we're here. Y'all are why we're here. Otherwise, why are we live streaming? Why are we talking about this stuff? Right? Y'all are so important. So great question, Grace. I called vetted for a reason. It's not called like UFOs or, probably like the same thing for them. There says all things unexplained, because my idea was to branch out with vetted, talking about other things, ancient technology, ancient civilizations, cryptids, right? The strange and mysterious, just that kind of whole. So that is where I see vetted sort of going. But UFOs is like so dear to my heart, that particular subject. So I'm starting there and kind of growing there, but I do hope to branch out into other things. Plus you start to see a lot of things become related in some ways, right? And start to connect, which is fascinating. I hope that answers your question, Grace. Great question.
And it does all seem to be related.
Yeah.
All right, let's get some hot takes in here, Tim.
Yes, indeed. It's time for our Area 51 Coffee Company hot takes.
Oh, that picture's right in front of Smitty's face.
Look at Smitty's like, wait. Why am I the hot take over here? You're the hot take, Smitty.
The hot take today.
And I can't get the layout to change. Sorry.
Well, I am the hottest host, so whatever.
Get your.
It gets hot down there in Mississippi.
Area 51 coffee at area51coffeeco.com.
I didn't mean temperature-wise.
They are not going to re-up this after this episode.
That's funny.
We apologize, Area 51 Coffee Company, but please order a case to make up for this indignation. My first hot take is for Patrick. This is, the keystone event of ufology. What do you make of the Roswell incident, 1947?
Well, I find it absolutely fascinating. The story behind it, the intrigue. We were talking about JFK earlier, all of us, right? Because I live in the Dallas area. The intrigue is equal, right? It's like the moon landing. It's like Roswell. I mean, it's one of the biggest in the entire globe, in my opinion, right? Like people know Roswell. So yeah, I'm fascinated by it. Is that the beginning? Just sort of this decades long, cloak and dagger game between our own government, right? And I'm jealous, Tim, because I want to go visit like you. I want to. Oh,
let me tell you. Well, first of all, I didn't know why I was going out there. I just felt drawn to it. One of the intriguing parts of Pasulka's story was this academic discussion of this nun in the 1600s that bilocated to New Mexico and help spread the word of Spain, right? But there just seems to be something mystical and magical about the place, that predates nuclear technology, of course. And Patrick, I didn't know why I was going out there, and I'm going to talk more about this one night, but I went. And next thing you know, I'm at the actual crash site. I'm with somebody from the Discovery Channel. I'm with some local folks that are able to take us out there who I managed to connect with. So that kind of blew my mind, the fact that just with no plans, nothing, I just went out there, and next thing you know, I'm at the crash site. Now, I did come back with an alien virus. I'm convinced of that still. CJ could tell you I could barely speak when I got back. But I'm going to cover this on another episode. we found some stuff out there. We had a metal detector.
I'm glad
we
we're on
found-
Zoom, Tim. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah,
We're
we
not in the
found some
same
things
room.
that
I'm
I can
kidding.
only
I'm kidding.
describe as anomalous metallic things. And we had
Okay.
some friends on joining us. Shout out to UFO Busters, that UFO show in Australia. Hello, people. Much love from Sydney, Australia.
Some balloons for y'all.
Look at that.
I'm sending your way, Sydney.
Look
Wait,
at
how
that.
did you figure that out so quickly? I don't know how to do balloons.
By accident. Trust me, I don't want it. I can't get rid of it.
Listen, there's some that reminds me of the lawyer that went on with the judge and he couldn't get the cat filter, you know.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So
That
and he
was a
goes,
great one.
and he had to let the judge know, just so you know, I'm not a cat. Oh, okay. Because we were worried. We didn't know if you were actually a cat.
we could just keep going. I'm sure it won't be too much of a distraction.
Oh, such a funny video.
But there are some great UFO
Classic.
people in Australia, including, I think it's UFO Busters. No, it's UFO SEQW. Anyway, they run a 24-hour day, at least at nighttime, live cam of the sky. And you could just tune in and watch the sky. And they spot, some crazy things on there. So I do have a quick Area 51 Coffee Company hot take for Smitty. Please be
Oh, boy.
careful. Be careful and brief. What's your hot take on Catholicism?
Oh gosh,
Going to cross myself before
This
you.
Can I
is an
please?
intense
Can I please
question.
avoid this question altogether?
yeah, I don't think that's appropriate for this
Yeah,
show.
that's
How is that possible? It's deeply entwined with the Diana
Oh
Pasulka
Jesus, Smitty, what are you
story.
gonna say? Now I'm curious. I don't know what the
it's-
problem is here. Like,
know.
what is Smitty about
I
to
don't-
say?
Hey, I
know.
knew though. I told him to be careful. Listen, Smitty, Diana Pasulka took Tim Taylor to the Vatican archives. We have photo evidence of it, interestingly, from Chris Bledsoe's book, UFO of God. I just wish that we had a photo of Chris Bledsoe with Tim Taylor, but I digress. Diana Pasulka said that Tim Taylor literally converted to Catholicism after visiting the Vatican archives.
Really?
This Tim Taylor
Well,
guy
I
gets
do think
stranger and
that
stranger.
they have an unbelievable amount of power, and that what they have there has hidden everything that they don't want anyone to ever see. And so that's all I'm going to say about that.
All righty, good hot take.
I
I've
agree
got-
with that hot take, Smitty.
I will just say, there is something to be said, and we've pondered before. Is Ross Coulthardt's giant UFO under the Vatican? The Catholic Church has been around for a long time, and there's no doubt, certainly, that they have more historical knowledge and scientific knowledge than I hate to say it, than the Southern Baptist and the Methodist and the Church of Christ is all combined. So there's some interesting, there's something to be said for that. I do have an Area 51 Coffee Company hot take for CJ real quick. This was in the news today or yesterday. UFO nuke mystery goes global. India newspaper reports craft flying over nuclear power plants every few days. And this ties in with Pasulka too. It's like the chicken and egg, when we're talking about Roswell and the plains of St. Augustine, which, by the way, right down the road from White Sands. And which came first, chicken or the atomic test or the UFOs? Some people believe that we opened a portal, that we weakened the realm between dimensions, or that we just literally zapped them out of the sky with new radars and atomic testing. CJ, what's your hot take on
It's quite the hot take.
UFOs and nuclear sites?
I don't know that I have enough knowledge to really give an opinion here, but based on what we have learned and heard, and we've had people on the show who have been at nuclear sites that have been shut down by UFOs. If I'm going to go real deep here, I think that we're being watched, and just like you said once before, if we were watching some other smaller creature about to kill one another, would we step in and stop them? If they are a higher intelligence, they've made it all the way here from another planet, they clearly had to be a kinder species to not kill each other along the way. Maybe they're just trying to keep us from mutual assured destruction.
Great answer, Patrick. You've talked to a lot of people. What do you think about this?
You've talked to a lot of people. I have, Tim.
You visited a lot of nuclear sites.
Yeah, that's true. That's funny. Yeah. Kids with the matches theory, right? I think Nick Pope told me that for the first time when I talked to him. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with what CJ said. To be honest with you, I would just second that. To be honest with you, I don't know. It's
I
an
mean, it
interesting
takes a lot of
connection.
leaps of faith, right? You have to believe
Yeah.
that there are UFOs. You have to believe that there are aliens. You have to believe that there are, whatever, all of those. But if we're
Yeah.
going to take all of those leaps of faith, then I would say that they are just shutting us down to keep
Protect
us.
it, help protect it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that totally makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
And of course, there was a recent report from a whistleblower that said, hey, we were testing a nuclear warhead. It wasn't active, but a UFO literally shot it down out of the sky. And that was in the news recently from a whistleblower. Patrick, I want to ask you about something a couple of weeks ago, much different than what we usually get from the government, which is this.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
The government actually revealed all, wink, wink, with the new Arrow report. I actually love this headline. No proof the U.S. government knows anything about UFOs, says the U.S. government. That's my favorite headline about the Arrow report. Patrick.
Well, that's pretty funny.
From Vetted Podcast, what's your hot take on the Arrow report?
I don't think it's much of a hot take, really. But yeah, I mean, again, I've been saying on my show, like, regardless of what you think about this topic, right? You believe, you don't believe, you think it's all bullshit, whatever. Those are taxpayer wasted dollars on that report, on the investigation into that. It almost seemed like a waste to even release it. Like, I don't know what it was meant to do. Like, oh, well, let's just stop looking into this. Like, it wasn't well put together. So it's kind of insulting. I think it's just a waste of tax dollars. Hopefully, but to be fair to the whole system, a lot of stuff in government first time around doesn't work out right. So let's just keep going, give it a try. We definitely need to stop being so like, Kirkpatrick's the devil. Everything he does is the devil, and it's all that. There's we can't have like these rational conversations about this. We're never going to get anywhere. If in my opinion, if we want like government disclosure, and that's a lot to ask. But the government isn't a monolith entity, so you can, as odd as it sounds, want the government to investigate itself, because that is possible, right? But yeah, I think we just need to be a little patient, which is hard to ask about this topic. But when it comes to legislation and U.S. government, like, we're going to have to be patient. Nothing just happens. So, something so profound as well, right? But hopefully this new team in Arrow will take things a little further.
Well said. And I've got one more Area 51 Coffee Company hot take that I want everybody to chime in on. Get your Area 51 Coffee Company at area51coffeeco.com.
What does that say? Invading Earth one cup at a time.
Yes. And the coffee is really good, y'all. I just ran out of mine, and I'm
super
so
good.
sad. It's so delicious.
And tell Patrick
That's
what you
awesome.
get when you order some
Oh,
Area 51
well, only
coffee.
I get a tiny little blue alien. I need to find him and show him on this. You didn't get one, right?
They sent me a coffee mug.
I got a coffee mug too.
Boom. I did want the alien. I'm not gonna lie.
My kids fight over the
So
alien too.
speaking,
Everybody wants the alien.
yeah, the
Right.
alien was super cool, and he
course.
probably glows in the dark. So speaking of the Arrow report, we were shocked when former guest Robert Bob Salas, who had his own encounter at a nuclear facility, told us about the existence, in his opinion, of a UFO cabal. And recently we heard these words from Ross Coulthart, Australian journalist.
And I can reveal here tonight that I've found out some of the members of a special secret advisory committee that Dr. Kirkpatrick used to advise him in the preparation of that report. I have their names, I have their roles, I know who they are. They are the gatekeepers, believe it or not, to this legacy program.
Mm-hmm.
They were quite literally pulling the strings on this Arrow report. And people are so angry, so bitterly angry with this feeble attempt at a cover-up, that they are now leaking more assiduously to people like me. And more importantly, whistleblowers are becoming more compelled to come forward and give evidence about what they know. And if I can just make one further point.
Okay.
I really aspire to be more Ross Coulthard-like with a Southern accent. It's not going to be easy, but I am going to pursue it assiduously for as long as I have to. You know, gatekeepers, UFO cabal sounds a lot alike to me. What does everybody think about a UFO cabal out there? Let's start with Patrick.
I want to know what whistleblowers have brought evidence, because he's saying like more are going to come bringing evidence. I mean, I haven't seen one do that. There's a lot of whistleblowers coming out. I think a lot of this doesn't matter. It's like what's going to get people over the finish line is actual proof and evidence. Stories are just only going to take us so far. The more this keeps growing, the bubble keeps growing, and they're trying to get more people involved, right? You know, gatekeepers and cabals and secret that, yeah, we know all that. Okay, that's what's been talked about. Like, we get it. Bring the evidence. Like, it's that conspiracy and that sort of story is only going to go so far. So I kind of just ignore a lot of that. If that's just me personally, you know, everyone, I get it. You get all riled up and they're hiding it. Okay, then we need people to come out and say, not just say, but bring evidence and proof. Otherwise, I don't know what the point is. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. So we're talking about the cabal is the group of people that we believe are withholding information. Correct, Tim? That's the concept here.
That's right. That they are in complete control of the UFO narrative.
Yeah. Well, okay. So part of me believes that's true, that if this whole UFO phenomenon is real, certainly somebody is controlling the dissemination of information.
Sure.
But I don't think that that's unique to UFOs. I think that there are people controlling how we receive our information everywhere we turn, even in social media, right? Like there's social engineering intrusions into what we see, think, feel. Certainly in the government. I just don't think that particular concept is unique to this phenomenon.
I agree with CJ. I mean, you look at, I know there's got to be things that are technologically more advanced than we have, but they won't release them right now because it might cause, you know, an economic downturn in some other industries. They're creating too much money. Where there's information, there's always going to be tons and tons of money. And those people are controlling this because regardless of what it boils down to, the people with the most money generally have the most power. And if they don't, they're backing the people that do with the money.
Yeah.
And I'll get my hot take on that to finish up our
Wait,
Area
nobody
51
asked you for your hot take, Tim.
Just to round it out, I
I'm putting a timer on. I am putting a timer on. You have 30 seconds, sir.
30 seconds.
That's
Hey,
hilarious.
I'm going to go back to one of my old favorites, The Day After Roswell by Colonel Corso. You know, whistleblowers are not new either. They've been military personnel have been blowing the whistle for a long time. Just nobody's ever really listened or believed them. If we believe that Roswell was indeed an alien crash or a UFO crash, extraterrestrial, NHI from another dimension, whatever you want to call it, then not only are you talking about the most important secret in the history of the world, you're certainly talking about the most important military secret ever. Hands down, bar none, the biggest secret, the most important secret ever. And if you read Day After Roswell, it started, boom, it crashed. Rancher found it, boom, the timer started ticking right there. The UFO cabal went into effect at that very moment. Why? Because it had to. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense when you're dealing with the greatest secret ever. And that's my hot take on
That is your
UFO
hot take.
cabal.
Wonderful. Well,
Boom.
this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think there's so much more that all of us are going to explore over the next several years. Patrick, tell our listeners where they can find you. What's the best place to go to get vetted?
Boom. Great. Yeah. Vetted.show. go to the website and that'll just take you, to the YouTube channel or wherever, Patreon, that sort of thing. So vetted.show, vetted.show.
Wonderful. Please do go check him out. Like, subscribe, follow. I watch your videos every single day. Tim makes sure I have one on my phone every morning, whatever came out the day before.
Nice.
And I have been watching them. They've been very, very
Nice.
educational. So thank you for what you do and the effort that you put into all of that work.
Thank
We are
you.
so grateful to have such wonderful guests like you on our show. Thank you, Patrick, for joining us. We hope that everybody will like, follow, subscribe, all of the things for All Things Unexplained as well. We thank everybody for their time. Tim, Smitty, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I have a final thought before Smitty takes us out. Folks, the skies are not classified. The woods are not classified. Get off your screens. Look up. Go in the woods. The truth is still out there.
Everybody just go to the woods, please.
Go in the woods, please.
Into the mountains,
Let me tell you
cabin.
something. If you do that,
Get in
around here,
traffic,
you better wear
okay?
some off because you're gonna have ticks all over you about 2 months.
Smitty's like, you better take some
Well,
off with you.
that's the
And
real
while you're at it,
hitchhiker effect.
let's take a camping gear while you're at it. Fishing pole. No, I'm kidding.
Smitty can play
no,
the
that's not it.
banjo. Ba-da-dum-bum-bum.
Get off the grid,
I
y'all.
don't
Go
play
and get
anything but the radio.
Do
the
it,
play the
Smitty. You know
radio,
you
that's
got it.
it.
You know you got a banjo back there.
I've got a guitar, but I don't know how to play it. But
You got some pretty
God.
teeth there, Smitty.
Oh my
thanks. I
goodness. We are
appreciate that.
derailing quickly. All right, Smitty, send us
Well,
on out, friend.
Thanks for Patrick being here. This has been a great show.
Mm.
Thank you for our listeners, and be happy, be strange. Listen to All Things Unexplained. Good night.
Hey, Unexplained Ones, are you ready for your next adventure? Then look no further than UFO Watchtower in Hooper, Colorado. Experience the wonder of the cosmos with guided tours, skywatching events, and first-hand accounts of their over 300 UFO sightings. Whether you're a seasoned ufologist or just curious, the UFO Watchtower welcomes you to explore the mysteries of the universe. They are currently open on weekends for tours or during the week for camping. Give them a call at 719-378-2296 to book your trip today.
Thanks. Like. Share. Follow. Comment. Subscribe. Support. What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the
Yes,
Alaska.
we do.
Okay.
All things unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, will save for closed session.